Good morning, Year 5, and welcome to day 4 of this week where we're going to start our decimals work. First of all though, here is your Fluent in 5 for today. And here are your answers. Okay, so today we're looking at decimals. Now we're going to start by looking at tenths. We already have quite a good understanding of tenths from our work on fractions. So we know that a tenth, which we would write like this, means 1 part out of 10 equal parts. So here's a couple of visual representations then. We've got a circle here. We've got a bar. Remember, a bar is always a really useful one to draw because it relates directly to a number line. We've got a number line underneath. Each one of these, the whole has been divided into 10 equal parts. Each of those parts is worth 1/10. We already know what that looks like as a fraction. We could write it in words, or we could write it in decimals. So decimals are when we think about numbers as wholes and parts. So if I were to look at a place value grid, we're used to having hundreds, tens and ones. That's our whole numbers. But we do know that we can split numbers into parts. So that is shown by this decimal point. And after the decimal point come the tenths. So 1/10 would be written as 0 ones, a decimal point, and 1/10. That's why it looks like that as a decimal, okay? 1/10 is 0.1 because there's 1 in the 10th column, okay? Let's have a look at this one then. This is 2/10, so it works in exactly the same way. It would be 2 parts out of 10 equal parts that are shaded or marked. We'd write it like this as a fraction, and then as a decimal, it would be 0, because we've still got 0 whole ones, and then 2/10. In the same way, 3/10 would be 0.3, 4/10 would be 0.4, and so on. Okay, let's see if we can put some of that new knowledge to use then. I'd like you to pause the screen and have a go at these, and then unpause where I'll whiz through the answers. Okay, so 5/10 is 0 whole ones and 5/10. 3/10 is 0 whole ones and 3/10. 6/10, 0 whole ones, 6/10, and 8/10, 0 whole ones and 8/10. Hopefully you can see how easy it is to transfer from decimals to words to fractions. Okay, let's have a look at number 4. So shaded parts, I've got 10 equal parts here. So it's going to be 4 out of 10 or 4/10. That must mean that there's 6/10 not shaded. And we've got 0.2 shaded and 0.8 unshaded. Hopefully you got on with that with no major problems. Let's look at the next bit. Same thing then, pause, have a go through it. If you're not sure, then unpause and watch me do it. Otherwise you can just check your answers. Okay, 0.1 is noted already. So we know that this must be tenths. So we would go 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, or half, 0.6, 0.7, 0.9, and then 1. Let me just show you quickly. I'm using 10p's, and that might become clear once we look at hundredths next week. So I've got tenths here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8/10, 9/10. Once I get 10/10 in exactly the same way as the place value grid works for every other column, once I get 10, I'm going to shift them along a column. So my 10/10, 5 will become 1 whole one. Okay, in this case, it would actually be 1 whole pound. All right, so 10/10 is equal to 1, and you can exchange 10/10 for 1. Okay, let's have a look at this one then. So now we're looking at mixed numbers. So remember, a mixed number is when we have a whole number and a fraction. It's going to work in exactly the same way, but this time we're going to have some in the ones column because we've gone over 1 whole one. 1 6/10 is 1 whole one and 6/10, or 1.6, okay? 12/10, well, we know that 10 of those tenths, and you can see from this pictorial representation here, 10 of those are going to change into a whole one, leaving 2 behind. So we can split that into 10/10 and 2/10. 10/10 is the same as 1, and we've still got our 2/10. or 1.2. Have a look at number 9, see if you can do that before I do. Okay, 15 tenths. Well, 15 tenths would be 10 tenths and 5 tenths. And the reason I've split it like that is because I know that 10 tenths is equal to 1. 1 and 5 tenths, which is a decimal, is 1.5. 2 ones and 3 tenths. Well, that's nice and easy. It's told me what columns to put it in. 2 ones, decimal point to show the difference between ones and tenths, and then 3 tenths. Okay, moving on. Okay, pause the screen, have a go at this. If you're still a little bit unsure, then don't pause, watch me go through it, and hopefully you'll be able to have a go at the next one. Okay, what decimals do the following shaded parts represent? I've got a whole one, and then I've got 9 tenths, so 1 and 9 tenths. I've got a whole one and 5 tenths, so 1 and 5 tenths. And then I can see that for a whole one here, and it is important that you work out that it is tenths, because it won't always be tenths. So I'm just showing you what a bar would look like underneath. You've got 10 equal parts. So if I were to shade up to there, that would be 5 tenths. And then this is one whole one and 1 tenth. Okay, let's have a look at number 12 then. So again, pause and have a go at this one first, and then unpause where I will go through it. And hopefully you'll be able to either see where you've gone wrong or give yourself a tick. Right, number 12, what is the decimal for each of the following? We've got 2 ones and 5 tenths. 2 ones and 5 tenths. 0 ones and we've got 5, 10, 15, 17 tenths. Well, I'm going to box 10 of those up because they make a whole one. And I've got 7 behind, so that's 1.7. 2 and 9 tenths is 2.9. 27 tenths, well 10 tenths would be a whole one, 20 tenths would be 2, so it's 2 and 7 tenths, which is 2.7. Express the length of each inset as a fraction as a decimal. Right, the ladybird is 9 tenths of a centimetre, or 0.9. The beetle is 1 and 4 tenths of a centimetre, or 1.4 centimetres. And then here, we've got a whole one and 7 tenths, which is 1.7 litres. And in each decimal in tenths here is 2 tenths, 0.2. 0.7 is 7 tenths. 1.1, or one whole one is 10 tenths. Add that one, gives us 11 tenths altogether. And one whole one is 10 tenths, add those 3, gives us 13 tenths. So you can see, I hope, the relationship here between wholes and tenths. They're getting 10 times bigger. Okay, last one then. So have a go at this one. Anything you're unsure of, unpause and I'll go through it. This is our last little bit of practice and then you can have some independent work. Okay, so the first is just showing us how we might write something. So 42.3 is 4 tens, 2 ones and 3 tenths, which we could partition into 40, 2 and 0.3, or we could put the 0.3 as a fraction as 3 tenths. So we need to do the same with this one. So 76.4, well, if I were to write it on my place value grid, I'm just going to move that down a little bit. 76.4, 7 tens, 6 ones and 4 tenths. There we go. It's 7 tens, 6 ones and 4 tenths, or 70 add 6, and that 4 tenths we would write as 0.4, or as a fraction it would look like that. 18 is one to talk through then, so 2 is in the tens place, the digit 3 is 3 ones, or 3, and the digit 6 is 0.6. So let's have a look. In 49.8, the digit what is in the tenths place? The tenths comes after the decimal point, so it's the 8. In 95.6, the digit 5 stands for 5 ones, or 5. In 50.2, the value of the digit 0 is 0. It's important that it's there, but it's still only worth 0 ones. In 92.9, the digit 9 stands for, we've got 9 tens and 9 tenths. there you go, an introduction to decimals for you with a focus on tenths. Here are your activities for today. It's quite a big practice. Work your way through it. If there's one you get to and you're not sure, go back and watch the video for that sort of activity. And then I'll be back tomorrow with your answers.